interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
I'm back, bitches. So what does it all mean? I'm finally back and there's no more revisited media, even though I have enough, probably not as much as Prince, but I figure if I do 3 to 4 episodes and then go on hiatus where I can work on other things like I worked on the past 6 weeks, you can expect PIT, book tea, Star Trek tea, sports tea, pop culture tea, and reality TV tea. And in between, you could also expect republishing and chair twerking because I have bad knees and feet. Thank you for joining me for this episode of TNFro is Reading, or a bonus episode of TNFro's Bar if I get sponsors, but not until then. And enjoy this shake mix. Apologies to Henry Mancini, but a riff on the Pink Panther theme is in alignment with a podcast segment dedicated to a fictional PI and all about true crime, or fictional crime in this case. Don't you think? A scam is a scam. There are some frauds so well conducted that it would be stupid not to be deceived by them. This is an old school fraudster, Charles Caleb Colton, a 19th century British kook. He was a cleric, a writer, and he himself was a scammer. He fled from his creditors, ended up in the gambling salons in France, won a fortune, lost a fortune, and then he killed himself instead of going through some type of surgery. I don't know if I would want to go through surgery without antibiotics and clean, sterile technique in the 19th century. I'm just saying no. So if this chick had pulled off this scam, because everybody would have been sitting here tripping, but I think she underestimated the power of social media, the power of just how iconic this landmark actually is. And I don't know. She really thought we were a bunch of mouth breathers in Tennessee. Well, who I'm talking about is Jeanine Findley. Lisa Jeanine Findley. This is just one of her aliases. What makes me think this was so gangster that she has done something like this on such a smaller scale, or she learned something from all of her cons over the years that led to her aspiring to stealing Graceland. Here we go. I remember back in June, I got an alert from, I think it was NBC, of the sale of Graceland was stopped. And I was like everybody else. Number one, I was like, where y'all tripping? Stop tripping, y'all. Then I clicked on it and I started reading, and then I realized that I've actually lived on and off in Tennessee for, oh, Jesus Christ, for 10 years. I have never visited Graceland. There's like a couple of places that I wish that, or I really need to go to because they were dope. At one point, I was actually traveling to all of the waterfalls, which I actually found out are on privately held property here in Tennessee. And I never got to visit. Uh, I stayed across the street from it, which was crazy years ago. On my way out west, I think I was, where was I going? Because Fred with my dog was still alive. And I ended up turning back around because it was raining and Fred don't like, he was bougie like Ethel. But that's a whole nother story. I stayed in a Best Lodge or Best Western or something across the street from Graceland. But I don't know if why it was closed or why I didn't feel it necessary to actually visit Graceland at that time. Because I've gone through there a couple of times. I've visited Jack Daniels, I think now 1812. There's another Fawn Weaver's spot is out there. Uncle Nearest is out there too. But I never visited it, and I realized just how trapped in the 60s the decor of Graceland is. I think once I lose a little bit more weight and I have some adjustments on my knee brace, I need to go and visit Graceland because I think that would be kind of dope in lieu of me doing this part of the podcast about fraud. Because back in June, once I saw that alert, they basically said the estate of Elvis and his granddaughter basically stopped the foreclosure auction of Graceland. And then I had to basically say, how did this actually happen? They the details of this level of a scam was just so dope. It was on the level of just some gangster shit. Lisa Jeanine Findley, small time scammer from Missouri, underestimated everybody. The estate, news media, social media. Evidently, in Tennessee, it is very easy to actually steal somebody's property, evidently. She basically submitted a claim to the court for unpaid loans. She initiated the action sometime this year. Lisa Marie died last year. I don't remember if she died of a heart attack or brain aneurysm, but she alleged using some fake ass company that in 2018 Lisa Marie had taken out millions and millions of dollars in loans and used Graceland as collateral. Evidently, the way the trust is set up, let me back up. For everybody that don't know, Graceland was Elvis Presley's estate that he bought back in the 50s. He lived there until he OD'd in the 70s. Graceland is for anybody that is just a looky-loo or a diehard Elvis Presley fan. That is a destination for every diehard Elvis fan. I think his crypt or his mausoleum is on the property, which I think is weird. But that's how evidently that's how they do it, or we do it in the South. But anyways, it is a destination for if you are a hardcore Elvis Presley fan. It by itself, the tours generates millions of dollars of revenue every year. If Graceland was going to go up for auction between the gift shop, memorabilia, being a centerpiece of Elvis Presley Enterprises, people gonna know if somebody who doesn't have that much, who doesn't have the power to take out those type of loans, somebody gonna know if these loans were taken out. I just went through the process of refi, my VA loan on my current house. This was streamlined loan, which was different than what I did 6 months prior. But they want your evidence of your firstborn child. You got to show insurance. The level of paperwork that actually has to be forged is outrageous. A lot of this stuff, and I remember saying to the notary, because a lot of the papers, some of them are in duplicate, a lot of them are in notices. She has gone through enough of these probably where she has a great printer. She probably downloaded a lot of the stuff from the internet, deleted. Don't you have to use whiteout? You can actually create a PDF and just change some shit, erase, and put people's names in there. Somehow, probably from Freedom of Information, she probably got the actual deed to Graceland, or had knowledge of whoever sat on the board that managed this property, and she was able to copy and paste their signatures into all of these papers. I don't know if y'all know this or not, but the average mortgage documents or loan documents are sometimes 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 pages. And for an iconic property like Graceland, I'm sure she did her due diligence to do the due diligence on making this fraud look good. So she had to basically fraudulently create probably several hundred page documents to make this actually look good, and to make it to claim. But the claim itself, even though it was false, she basically went to the courts to actually force a foreclosure sale. All you have to do, because foreclosures are kind of crazy here, once you basically are, or it's shown that you are greater than 90 days in arrears, a lender can initiate an acceleration process, and the next step would be foreclosure. That notice of foreclosure, or to actually start or force the sale of the property, either you can get it through judicial action, or you basically advertise in a newspaper for 3 weeks. She put it in some podunk circular in Memphis. Somebody saw it. One of the judges basically like, "Nah, son, slow down. We got to basically stop this." It gave them enough time. I think they probably put an injunction on that foreclosure because they were right down to the wire. Somebody notified the family, and then they actually filed a former suit basically saying that her claim on that property, all of that stuff was fraudulent. I think she literally, if she was betting on nobody seeing the notice, the property being sold, and then she was going to actually hold the property in ransom, for basically ransom, and she was still going to get a grip. Because she was probably going to get it for a song, because nobody was going to actually, she was betting that probably nobody was going to show up for this auction. It was like she was betting on nobody paying enough attention to be able to not pay attention that the most iconic house in Memphis was getting auctioned off. That was ballsy in and of itself. Because two things basically align. Number one, everybody was, I think one of the judges was like, "Wait a minute, this don't sound right." And then the wheels of justice, even though sometimes they can actually turn very, very slowly, in this case, This was some of the most rapid shit I've ever seen in my life. Because not only, because that's the other thing. That's one of the things. People in Tennessee talk, and I bet somebody in the either somebody in the media alerted somebody, or one of the people that sits on the board, if not a board member themselves, was basically called up one of his homeboys, golf buddies, drinking buddies, and said, look, what in the ham sandwich is this? Something is really wrong. We need to get an injunction filed to slow down the sale. And then they basically, that gave them time to either text or mail or contact one of the actual heirs to the property to be able to stop the sale on behalf of their deceased relative. Um, I don't think Lisa Marie Presley, she, I don't think she has any claims beyond if she actually has any shares in the Elvis Presley Enterprises, because she's technically not a direct heir. If this is truly heir property, the only person that had that is basically was deceased, but she also had children, and that's where her children, they had to get it together, get the lawyers involved to put a full stop on the sale of the property, because it sounds like they were about a week or so away from them auctioning off Graceland on the steps of the courthouse. This con was just so devious, and it had a lot of moving parts. There were so many documents that they had to fraudulently create to be able to make this believable. But all they did is actually have a scam, a claim, and then advertise it, and then they almost got away with it. But they basically underestimated uh, word of mouth and people basically being notified, because I'm sure some Elvis fan board member has some type of alert that comes up on their computer if anything actually is Elvis based, auction based, Graceland based. Somebody saw just an inkling. They were like, what the fuck? And then they basically called their homeboys to basically shut all of this down. But if this had actually gone off without a hitch, Elvis Enterprises could have been on the hooks for millions, because it would have taken them years probably to untangle the fraudulent nature of the deceit itself, or they would have just paid out of the wazoo, because no, some of fraud don't even come to light because people will pay to settle because they don't want to endure the embarrassment. And I think that's what have probably happened in this case. But this was brilliant. I honestly think this mouth breather from Missouri underestimated just how in tune this landmark is, and she wasn't prepared for the aftermath of it. OMG, this girl, Lisa Jeanine, tried it. And you know what trips me out? Her wire fraud and identity theft. I'm not sure, even with the calculations uh, that the federal government uses to prosecute these cases or get sentences, I doubt if she will probably even serve more than a year or two. She probably will be on house arrest, because it doesn't appear that any money exchanged hands, even though she was stood to gain millions if she had actually pulled this off. She literally did not pull this off, which is good. Also, right along the lines of Elvis, so evidently there is some kook out there that, let me pull this up, see if I can pull this up. Whoo, child. Somebody out there is stating that they have one of a kind, or they have one of the largest Elvis memorabilia in collection of memorabilia, Elvis memorabilia, on record. They put up for auction some type of one of his jackets. Slight problem. This black grommet jacket, which was supposed to be worn by Elvis in 1972 by Wine's Hanker. I think I've seen a couple of these on the Antiques Roadshow. The issue with this bitch is the supposedly the exact same jacket is actually hanging in Graceland. Sorry, please go sit down somewhere. It is hilarious to me that, wait a minute, let's see. Behind the 2023 has made a name for itself by selling some of his memorabilia through Elvis's ex-wife. Largest collection of his memorabilia. There's some other items that were put up for auction that they also, I don't think I've ever seen this. This is one of his more tame pieces. It's actually pretty cute, but nah. Some I vouching for the authenticity. Of course, she tried it too. She befriended this lady Cruz who put up these items. Probably they had a good relationship with Priscilla Presley, and she helped her auction off some items. But then this bitch probably used those same authentication records, um, and, and then put a lot of knockoffs on. Oh God, y'all are so trippy. Put some knockoffs on the market, flooding the market or in auction houses with this mess. And now she has no relationship with her because I'm sure Priscilla Presley's like, oh girl, yes, you tried it. No, none of this stuff is authentic. And she probably is now going to need to send out a cease and desist because I'm sure she only gave her some items to sell, but she tried it and just tried to go beyond. You give some people an inch, they take a mile. But the con is only good as who you're conning and what you're trying to get. You know, I watch American Gangsters Trap Queens, and this goes with Aisha Hall, who served many years for her fraud, forgery, wire fraud, and also Lynette Williams. Same thing. She was in on that mortgage tip. I think if little old Lisa had either taken some notes from either one of them, she may have been able to pull this off, even though it was Graceland. But these women were actually able to operate in impunity until all the cards started falling and the chips lied where they may. But with those things said, it's a lot of people out there with that are true blue fans, and this is just not from Elvis. I watch Antiques Roadshow from the America as well as from British, and the more popular brand name porcelain jewelry, etc. If it looks too good or there's some type of slight imperfection, you know, sometimes you just can't go with your gut. Leave it to the experts. Because, as I said at the top of the previous segment, a scam is a scam. But sometimes some frauds are just too good. You would almost be stupid not to fall for it. I'm saying, that's a word right there from Homeboy, this ultimate OG scammer, Charles Caleb Colton. If he never word was ever true. Um, this scam was a little bit too sloppy. She went for in the age of social media. This chick, not only Lisa Jeanine, but homegirl from the auction house that tried to sell an authentic black grommet jacket that is hanging in Graceland right now. And basically, it can't be one of a kind if the actual one is in Graceland. So, girl, and also don't try to use people, because that stuff, fraud goes around and will come and bite you in the butt at the most unexpected moments. And also, this sheds light. I think that I saw this also on NBC News. Everybody's on high alert because of this international story about this fraudulent auction of Graceland. Now, everybody is going to be looking at you sideways if you come up with anything with Elvis Presley's name on it. They're going to be like, oh, I need to see who authenticated this. Is it from Homegirl Cruise, from GWS, or what? Child, this is a time of Elvis truth telling. I'm just saying. Are you blue? I'm not blue, because I ain't trying to buy no fraudulent, drop no grip on anything fraudulent.
Lift every chair and swing till all them white folks scream. Thought y'all could run up on our black king.
That is affectionately Lift Every Chair and Swing, right in time for the first anniversary of FAFFO Day, August 5th, known colloquially as the Alabama Broil or the Alabama River Boat Broil. But as I said, it's officially the FAAFO Day. In this episode of Woke History, I went down a whole rabbit hole of racial restrictive covenants, which in Tennessee and in this country, these restrictive covenants have been used to keep people of color, African Americans, certain genders out of neighborhoods. It became federally illegal not until after the passage of the Civil Rights Act. But just because, we lived in Jim Crow South, that's one of the things the racists didn't think of. And I find it rich that just like Lincoln, who morally knew of the moral disgustingness of slavery, he still didn't think that African Americans were equal to white people. I mentioned that because although there are two different political parties, Lincoln, GOP, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Democrat, a lot of African Americans voted for FDR, supported the Democratic Party. They worked hard, the Democratic Party that is, worked hard to gain our trust, even though the benefits of the New Deal were not open to the vast majorities of African Americans in this country. It was still some reprieve during that dark time. However, Some of us were so broke and had been living on scraps forever, never realized any benefits, even heard of any potential benefits from the New Deal. Because that's just the way our racist, segregated society was during its entire period of time. So imagine my not so shock when it became codified during his administration that it was okay to put up, it was like an expansion of Jim Crow throughout the entire country. Jim Crow are restrictive rules against African Americans that started during the Reconstruction or the 19th century. This BS started well into the 20th century. And I didn't really start thinking of it because one of my guilty pleasures is watching all of these multi-million-dollar real estate shows. The most thing I noticed, there weren't a lot of black people on any of the shows. There were the Altman brothers and their cool gel hair and their douchey ways. The Oppenheims brothers, the twins, same thing, bald, yoked, of Jewish descent. But they did not have a lot, if any, people of color or successful real estate agents with melanin. I just thought, I was fascinated by that. Also, outside of the professional athletes, I did not see a whole bunch of African Americans, like old money African Americans, because I know they exist in LA. I didn't see a whole bunch of them buying and selling real estate. Maybe they actually keep it within their families for posterity, but I was absolutely fascinated by that. So that's why I went down this rabbit hole of how many games these real estate agents play. And that's why I found out about restrictive covenants. In Tennessee, there are rights that the property owners can use these certain restrictive covenants to control how their property can be used. But the actual racial restrictive covenants have been illegal since the 60s with the passage of, let's see, it's actually a whole, let's see, discriminatory restrictions. It's called Section 12955. It is where it is illegal to have discriminatory or even discriminate against or harass any person of race, color, religion, or sex from actually living, as far as housing discrimination. Took y'all a minute to basically reverse something that was actually in place and codified since the 20s. And I went down this rabbit hole, and it's actually kind of funny because I not only found evidence of these covenants in Chattanooga, but in the recent stupidity that actually happened as it involves Graceland. Back in May, there was a day before it was supposed to be auctioned off, Graceland, and I've already spoken about this. This was the best grift, and it got called off because I believe this woman was thinking that nobody was going to refute the sale and auction of one of the most visited houses in the world. Elvis is king, even in Hood, Whitehaven, which is the part of Memphis, Tennessee, that Graceland sits. But before there was a Whitehaven, there was Graceland Farms, which was owned by the Tooth family. And when Elvis bought it in the 50s, it was once that house. It was a 13-acre parcel that was a part of a 500-acre parcel that the Tooth family or the relatives of them used as farmland. Whitehaven since grew up around that. Also, just so you know, and I had a question, was it a part of Redline? Actually, no, because after racial restrictive covenants and quote unquote redlining was made illegal, and actually some of them actually probably still, I need to look at this map a little bit closer. Redlining became illegal in this country with the passage of that section, the 12955 section. Whitehaven wasn't annexed until the 70s, the early 70s. But I truly believe, let me see if this section of Memphis was actually redline. Because it's like the southwest part of, it looks like it's probably, because Whitehaven is only, they say, Graceland is only 4 miles from the Mississippi border. And I wonder, and that explains a lot because Elvis was born and partially raised in Mississippi. He bought Graceland in the 50s when he was only 22 years old to get away from crazy fans and the hubbub. And that's where he actually drew his last breath when he had a heart attack in one of the bedrooms there. But that's neither here nor there. I found all this out when I did this deep dive. And there also was not any big secret that although Elvis was famously known for cultural appropriation with the dance move and how he sung, but again, he still was a white dude, a rich white dude in the South from Mississippi, racist through and through. And I am sure he would have been tripped out about the neighborhood that grew up around his beloved Graceland. I believe it had probably started changing right around the time of his death. But since if you don't interact with the neighbors, because by then he had put up a multi-foot high wall, he didn't have to interact with us. And it also it trips me out that his neighbors also really could give two shoots about Graceland. And it's just so much. It's a bunch of wasted time in how neighborhoods are gutted and the realization of part of the American dream of wealth, happiness, and the pursuit of happiness all can be undermined because a bunch of racist individuals want to block your blessings. So they basically draw lines around whole areas where they don't allow investment, where they don't allow ownership. They don't allow the infrastructure, the improvement upon the infrastructure to make those neighborhoods more viable. When if you just did the bare minimum, the neighborhoods would thrive, and that would only add to the coffers of the wealth of the whole city at whole. Again, racism doesn't make any sense. This is when bigotry will actually shoot off their nose in spite of their face. And that's what redlining does. It is such a part of an overall system of apartheid where you basically legalize separation of one race from another and deprive one race of their civil and political rights. One of those things is through redlining. We gave it a name when it was in South Africa, but we created this system of supremacy which doesn't benefit anybody. We could call it by a separate name. Israel got their own apartheid, which I'm sure they learned from us. South Africa had to go through civil unrest. So what's going to be next for that? But this redlining-ish is on some next level bullshit. Because when a group of us are encouraged and given the basic means, that only adds to the benefit of the general population at all. And when these racist bigots, white supremacists, and Israeli supremacists, once they finally realize that, how much better society would be. If that what it means to be woke, when you recognize, if you don't make distinctions and separate people for a ridiculous reason based on race or religion, that's when you all can thrive. If that's what it means to be woke, then this bitch is gonna have to be woke all day, every day. And if it takes pointing out the hypocrisy of racism and bigotry, I'm also continue to do it in these types of segments. And I said what I said.
The Shady Bunch, the Shady Bunch. I hope turning up for checks to pay for fake lifestyles were to be a part of the shady. To be a.
It's not how you got on the show. It only matters if you're still here. Carlos King, his podcast. And truer words have never been said so completely and have rang true. I would venture that I'm not going to do a recap of New Jersey's any better than a slew of the podcasts in addition to Carlos's podcast on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. Let's just start there. But as I rewatch the last 2 episodes, which are probably the best episodes in the darkest season of New Jersey Housewives ever, I had given up hope that it was ever going to get better, but it only got better when it ended. I thought last year's reunion was pretty explosive, but nobody watches these types of Real Housewives of Anywhere, in particular with table flipping, hair pulling Jersey, that it's going to be just smooth sailing, etc. The reality of the show, and it became very apparent last year, that a lot of people forgot the assignment. It was a lot of people that wanted to dethrone the queen that made and gave everything to this show, Theresa Giudice. I know she's remarried, but she will always be Theresa Giudice. Even with her husband, the great Joe Giudice, and his felon butt, she also is a felon. But you know, they put that show on pause when she actually went in. So whatever Jane Fonda says, get with the program, bruh. And because it is obvious that y'all were with the shits to dethrone somebody that actually made this franchise, yeah, now y'all are going to get your comeuppance and you all messed up your check. But I'll get to that in a minute. What I learned from initially watching the throwdown of them first at Rails and then them going back to Rails to rewatch that last episode, it was like watching a funeral. So it made sense that everybody was in black except for Jennifer Aydin, who is, I think she's Real Housewife gold, but she, in essence, screwed up her bag. She's really lucky. As long as her husband is allowed to continue to operate and don't get caught up either in some morals charge or some big malpractice where he is still able to produce millions and it translates into $1 million salary, I think she will actually be okay. But I can see him and his Turkish butt having different streams of income to support the lifestyle that they have grown accustomed to. So, with all of those things said, I'm actually getting into some of the things that I noticed. The only thing I'm going to actually say, and I have a lot of quips mixed into it, is where does this show go from here? I wasn't surprised because we were only a few episodes in when they announced that there was not going to be a reunion, virtually unheard of. But they noticed after all the filming that they did, they were at a crossroads and that they were not going to be able to reconcile, or some of the things just didn't make sense anymore. There are decidedly two camps, but the two camps could not seem to come to some type of resolution. And it had a lot to do with probably social media and other off-screen shenanigans. It's like off-screen took on a life of its own, and it so affected the dynamics of the castmates that they could not effectively do their job. We had people leaking stuff to bloggers. We had private investigators. We had threats. We had lawsuits that just settled. So it's a lot. It's a lot. And for this cast and this mix of ensemble cast, there was no reconciliation. So that's why they had no reunion per se, but they actually had the meeting of the minds initially at Rails, which went off the rails. And then they went back where the cast had a watch party in separate rooms, but they never interacted. I think it was an attempt for production to try to salvage and to see what the castmates to have a reaction to their behavior in that meeting or brunch, and to see if they could get their word in and get some of the logic out. It didn't really work because there was no interaction between the two groups. There was no interaction why Jen Fessler ran up out of there like a scared chicken, where she doesn't like conflict. But I was all here for Danielle doing an old school Theresa move and diving across the table at Jen Aydin. And Jen Aydin was like, yeah, this is what we do. Bring her back in. I don't care. I know she's going to know how to act one way or another. She knows she can provoke it. She can go town to town. And I think if pushed, Jennifer Aydin can throw hands if she really wanted to, but I don't think she wants to break a nail. She's so funny. It just makes me sad that she may not come back because she broke breached the fourth wall, and I think there's tangible proof that she was leaking information to bloggers. But that's neither here nor there. So there are, and it's, and even though I basically said, and I want to go back to this, even though I said this is Theresa's show, and there are people that forgot the assignment, I think that there are certain cast members, if they had just remembered their place, and could have actually been a friend, because I've heard Carlos and a lot of other people say what Theresa can respect is if you basically confront her, don't try to tear her down, let her process it, and then you can actually, if she comes to terms with if she's done or said something that was absolutely truly wrong, you can actually she can respect not having a yes man. And if she's truly in the wrong and you point that out without trying to tear her down or put her in her place, then y'all can actually have, she can actually have a good relationship. But once you do some sneak shit and you try to use her to only promote yourself, then she gonna kick you to the curb, and she's going to show her your ass. That's what she did to Jackie Goldsmith, and she is a loyal friend, and it seems like she requires loyalty, but she can, if she will allow you to point some shit out, as long as you're not trying to do some sneak fuck shit. That's how she is. She's very simple, and I respect that. And she will go Patterson Hood on you in a minute, become rat-a-tat-tat #1 if you try some sneak shit. And I think that's what her issue was with Margaret. Margaret was trying some sneak shit with Jackie Goldsmith, but Margaret at least owned it. And I think Margaret, I think she went too far. And she is the perfect villain, but she can't be off the rails and do this kind of negativity. And if she doesn't know how to rein it in, then she should not be on the cast. But if she could, but I think this type of somebody that's willing to tell the truth and stand on their truth, but not do this in a sneaky, invasive way, aligning themselves with the ex, giving her jewelry, that kind of stuff, it's just malicious and negative. And if this is the way you wanted to overthrow the obvious queen of this show, I think that's a pure fail. You get an F for effort. That's it. So, while this show is on pause, because it's inevitably on pause, I don't think we need a complete reboot, but there are only a few cast members of this show that really need to come back. In particular, of course, as I said, Forever Theresa G, the OG, the Forever, she comes back. Who do you pair her with? She does not need just an alliance, someone with an alliance. She actually needs a really good friend. And I think Dolo ain't on the DL. I think she has more of a story to tell, and I'm here for it. I think she needs to explain her forever tan and that hair, because the math ain't mathin'. I want to see the 23andMe, and I want her family to explain her skin tone, because she ain't adopted. Both of her parents appear white. They said her father has a certain percentage of Nigerian, but how much though? I want to know. Somebody was tiptoeing in the tulips. I want that story to come out. I want to see more of Paulie's Scottish background and how his family really is reacting to her. And if nobody is willing to actually share that. And what is so bad about Louis that that even her ex still sides with him, who, as y'all remember, freaking disbarred. He's a disgraced lawyer. Misuse of client funds. So yeah, I think his background is more sketch than Louis. And why are they tripping? As I said, if Margaret can tone it down and not be so dark, or they can put a lid on the nonsense and not just manufacture drama, that's something I could get with. But that's a big question mark if she's able to rein it in. Jennifer Aydin all day, but I think she screwed herself from a production standpoint because they can't trust her. And her relationship with bloggers, that is. Jackie Goldschneider, nah, she needs to stay friends of. I don't think she has the psychiatric strength to be able to be in this group. She was the one that great Margaret line. You subpoenaed the wrong bitch. Yes. Jackie Goldschneider had been in contact with Louis' ex, basically to get dirt on Theresa if it had to do with her husband, but there wasn't, so she didn't reveal anything. Where Margaret was completely capable and likable for setting off time bombs and letting other people do her dirty work. So Rachel Fuda and her husband Jane Fuda, I don't want to see her duck lips anymore. I think she is an accessory, and I'm completely uninterested in her storyline. Now, rat-a-tat-tat, Danielle, yeah, that's the baby Theresa right there. And within the right hands and molding, I think she can come into herself and she would be an asset to the show. And I also rewatched this last episode. I'm intrigued. If they're willing to film it, her lack of relationship with her father and her brother, I'm very interested in seeing that and how she navigates this. And if she took notes from the destruction of the relationship between Theresa and Joe Gorda. But Joe is an attention whore. He doesn't want to do the work, but he thinks he needs to be first. He's like one of those spoiled young men. And we saw it when with Joe Gudice. Joe Gudice wouldn't have it and beat his ass. He complained that he got in the middle of his relationship. No, he didn't. You got in your own way of your relationship with your parents. It was more like a show and prove. They moved in with him because they knew with Theresa and Joe at the time because they knew they couldn't depend on your ass. Because again, you wanted the glitz, you wanted the fame, you wanted the attention, but you didn't want to do any of the work. And you're not all that talented. So, sorry, bruh. And with that said, Melissa should go. She forgot her assignment. If she had remained a really good and loyal sister-in-law, she could have continued with the show. But the state of the affairs, not filming, not speaking to her sister-in-law or the kids, and all this back and forth on social media and machinations and meet up how they can overthrow Louis, therefore overthrow Theresa, yeah, it's toast. Theresa may have spoke out of turn and said, okay, this is the last time I'm going to see you. And it was the last time they probably spoke because we didn't see them interact at all, positively or really negatively, throughout this entire season. She bought herself one more year because I'm sure the production company was like, we can't have a star, even though rightfully so, say that you ain't coming back, and she's self-selecting people to be on the cast. But that's exactly what she did. Basically, If y'all won't talk to each other, and you are obviously the fan favorite and cast #1 cast member, your ass ain't coming back. Her and Joe's own ego basically shot them in the foot and screwed up their bag. I don't think she's making any money from that stupid fashion boutique. I bet if it hadn't already shut down, or what is it called, Envy, it's getting ready to shut down because nobody cares. You're not on the show anymore. That's the reason why you were able to do all these things if you had played your cards right. But y'all forgot the assignment. It is even in spite of what Jane Fuda says, it really is Theresa's show. Y'all could have figured out how to navigate this shit without hitching your wagon to the Margaret train or to the overthrow somebody that actually made the show. Who does that except for narcissistic, stupid people? And that's who Melissa and Joe Gorga are to this show. Narcissists, you got on the show, you forgot your assignment, now you on the hook for a multi-million-dollar mansion that is actually pretty, but how you gonna make them payments if you ain't getting no check from the show? That is your source. And it's not guaranteed that you're gonna get picked up by another show, or because we also know the Real House Husbands of New Jersey fell apart. Nobody ain't feeling that. So unless you got ink on the paper, y'all mixed up your bag, and it's so your own fault. Fessler, she seemed to me to be the Jewish voice of reason, but I don't think she is. And she basically films well. I completely agree with that. But not on this show. I don't think she has the wherewithal to be on Jersey. I don't think she Real Housewives of Jersey material. If she could have taken, and she's Christian, Orthodox Christian, but Jennifer Aydin was like, bring it. What did she say? She break bread and we break plates. Yes. That should be Jennifer Aydin's motto. She knows what she signed up for. She knows she has skeletons in her closet. She knows her mouth is reckless. And then stuff is get thrown at you. People pull your hair. However, that's what you sign up for. And I don't think that's what Fessler wanted. So she doesn't come back. So this is the reality of this reality TV show. Yes, it's on pause. I think it should come back. But there needs to be a major cast shakeup. And the only two people that truly should be guaranteed spots are Dolo. Because I need to see more of Dolo from Patterson, because that was epic. Calling her a lying cunt. That's funny. As well as with, of course, the Queen Bee, Theresa G. She needs to eat a couple of hamburgers or cut her dose of Ozempic, or unless she's gonna start competing again as a fitness model. I would be happy to see both of them come back, but the rest of them, not so much. I think the definites that I don't need to see anymore, because I don't really need to see Joe Gorga douching it up with Frank. I don't think that Melissa or Joe need to come back. That is obvious. I don't need to see the Fudas and Homegirl's duck lips. I don't need to see Jackie unless she was sneak attack, but I'm sure there's other people that Margaret could actually use. Margaret's a big question mark to me. Because as long as she lets it go with the whole Louis thing, because I think there are other castmates that have worse than whatever they're trying to drum up on him. I also, uh, even though Jennifer Aydin broke the fourth wall, I think she did her penance this season. But she's truly made for this show. She is what we tune into. She is hilarious. And I like her. I think she has more story to tell. I want them to see them go back as a cast trip and seeing Turkey through, or that part of the world through an Orthodox Christian's eyes. I want to see that. I'm only interested in this group and their interesting families that actually have a story that we want to see. Because this other manufactured BS, I don't need to see any of that. Like if Margaret had bought it in as she tries to reconcile with her kids, because we still haven't seen that. She's so focused on getting Louis. What have you done to repair your own relationship with your own children? The rest of your children. How about that? So, after I'm rewatching the Shaws, this is the season 2 reunion. And I aptly, I think, named this the Shaw's penis goal loss because I still think there was so much of the Persian culture that we did not, as this is the viewing audience, did not see. That, I don't know, somebody determined that it wasn't interesting enough, or that they could not have built upon it. And I think from the production, what they didn't understand or they couldn't understand, they just left it on the production or editing floor. These reality shows are highly edited, unlike my podcast. I basically, since this is a podcast that I do all the editing, I do all the scripting, I put all the parts together. I guess I have a lot of latitude as far as what I want to present. The only editing I do is for sound. So, I don't even know how to do levels or anything as far as once I get it recorded, basically it's a wrap. I don't even the speaking parts, unlike the transitions between segments, are not even in stereo because I record this on my recording app on my phone, and then I basically upload it to Logic Pro. So there you go. But what I do as I watch or rewatch this show, I only watched it years again after it had gone off the air. It had gone off the air. It had stopped production during the pandemic. And then basically, I believe in 2022, 2023, they said it wasn't coming back. I've watched and rewatched all 9 seasons. And I basically, after rewatching them all, I basically can say that with the loss of Asa Sultan after season 6, she had her kid by Jermaine Jackson, and then she basically threw up the peace sign. I don't know if she was not asked back or she basically said, I'm good on the Shaws. But what I've noticed in these reality shows, there has to be a real chemistry. There has to be a level of messiness. There has to be people that will you can keep it real but you don't have to keep it real nasty. If you're going to tell somebody something and be messy, if it's not going to help, you don't need to basically tell them those things. And that's where things went left in seasons 7 through 9 of the Shaws. When Mercedes basically married that old stinking foot Tommy, and she basically almost died, and nobody came to her ICU room. They came to visit. I thought it was sweet when they came to visit Shamps, her father, when he was dying. But it was wild that they were not there at the time that she almost passed away. I don't see anything in the news where it wasn't edited out, or they literally did not come, or truly, if Reza actually called her to fuss about her saying something, or he heard her say something XYZ, I I just am just stunned. And with all of her quirkiness, I believe she was the only true voice of reason within this group. And I've said this now because I've seen it. I also watch all the real estate shows. They have said it over and over and over again. One of the OGs, Sammy from season 1, um, some of Mike's friends. I've seen it on Million Dollar Listing, like Josh, was Altman, the Altmans. They basically says outside of Iran, Beverly Hills has the largest population of Persians on the planet. So I can't understand why. So they're not a group of friends with similar values, such a mix and a chemistry, but I don't think they're brave enough to basically have what it takes and put it all on the line for reality TV. Also, they're not going to do free. I think when this show first came on, they picked these group of Persians up on the cheap because they weren't really doing anything. They weren't all that successful. And so they got them on the cheap. I still don't believe fully that Reza is the most successful realtor in Beverly Hills, knowing, and gay at that, knowing what I know about or saw what I seen. And this is all my limited experience with the Altman brothers and Josh Flagg. I can't see him being one of the most successful, not even in the Valley, not on the Beverly Hills Flats, not in Bel Air. I don't still think his Rolodex is that extended and reaches the international and this uber rich crowd that could sell Los Angeles. I don't think he has that kind of pull. Not in the OC, not in Newport. And he's not all that good looking. Also, Mercedes is so lazy. She is like Mike. She's too busy getting BBLs, um, and not necessarily doing what it takes to basically not only land the listing, but also closing the deal. And Mike, his own mama said it's going to take more than you being posted up on a bus to basically drum the deals. Now that watching Million Dollar Listing, LA, and then New York. You got to actually do the most in the Oppenheim group, knocking on doors, cold calling people, and then following up uh, with former clients and actually just being on your game. If you're going to go out partying, you still have enough wherewithal to network and then be able to follow up on those calls. I think these people believe the hype, were partying hard, getting drunk, blotto drunk, and there was no follow up. Because I could have, if they were actually all that successful and had that much of a credible Rolodex, they literally could have ended up on shows like $1 Million Listing, one of the franchise shows. If that fool Frederick could have did it, or Ryan Searhant had done it, why couldn't these fools who are actually realtors, that were supposed to be realtors? I think this show was a great source of income for them, but they definitely were not prepared to the after show. They believed the comments, they did what they did to become reality TV gold, but what they were willing to do whatever they do to be reality TV gold, but when that opportunity ends, those skills are not marketable anywhere else. Definitely, if you're such a sociopath, willing to say anything and to backstab your so-called friend of 30, 40 years, nobody in the real estate game, because it is so cutthroat and so image savvy, they don't want this at all. What I've saw for the last several seasons of this show. Reza and Mercedes going back and forth. Uh, Basically, Mercedes sicking her husband on them and then say, oh, he just broke a plant. Because if he had been there, and I'm referring to basically Reza going off on Mercedes saying she had so many abortions, that's why her uterus exploded when that girl almost died. And then Tommy, Mercedes' husband, going over there to beat his ass. And if he had been at the house, he would have broken up more than some clay pots and jacked up some plants. And she knew that. She knew she released the Kraken. And there was no other way that she was going to get it back. Because what he said was low down. And basically, he was basically reacting to something awful that she said to him. So, and then you got the princess of Persia, Gonessa, who we saw glimpses of her. I forgot where they were. I think when they were in Las Vegas and she started playing the piano, and then she just stopped. I wonder if she had stuck with anything, or if her arthritis was actually under better control. Could she have been a concert pianist, or if she had gotten hearing aids? I wonder if she would have had more children if she could have probably hired a surrogate. And then they went off on Asa for not revealing that she probably did use in vitro to have her first child. But who cares? But then they blamed her and they got mad because I don't think she actually had the words to verbalize how it is being Persian and then being married or dating and having a family with an African American. Because, and I don't think, and I think she also felt that they were just so stupid and probably rightfully so, that she did not feel safe having those kind of conversations with that group of people. She didn't feel safe in her pregnancy, definitely didn't feel safe bringing Jermaine around to be under the scrutiny, not of the public, but also that group of sociopaths. I think it would have been fascinating. I think it would have been fascinating to learn what Asa's mom thought about raw vegan and basically forcing that upon that little boy. Nah, that was not going to last long. And I already could have told you that. I also would have wanted to see more of her art and her installations. I think all of that would have been really dope. But in order to be a part of that world, she would have having to given up a lot, and I don't think she was willing to do any of that for the buck, for the fame, because it sounds and it looks like she's golden without it. When the show was actually canceled and they knew that they were not coming back, I think the production may have still been gaslighting Gigi, Reza, and Mercedes. But unless they were going to bring them back with other voices of reason outside of Reza's spouse and Mercedes' spouse, there was really no one within that group was reasonable enough or had more or enough storyline outside of the toxicity that we saw between each one of them. I would have loved to see them. Would they have gone back to Turkey, and how did it look for being in Israel during all of this nonsense? And being in other places, going back to Bali, going on the swings, experiencing the world through, and also seeing other places where there are groups of Persians willing to showcase their culture outside of this group of sociopaths. That would have been dope. But I think this group of Persians messed up the bag. And I'm not sure if is there a chance for them to come back in some other capacity with a different production company with better knowledge of the culture and with a rebooted mixture of people willing to really showcase their lives, mess and all, without fabricating it. In the essence of keeping it real, you can keep it real messy, but that's not all that makes a show. Messy makes very negative TV watching, and it can also get you put on pause. Ask Atlanta, ask New Jersey housewives. The after, what does it mean for the after of it all? So, there you go. I still just think there are more Persian stories to tell, and I don't think this group, as it stands, or the last three standing, could showcase that as well as it can be. And that's just my opinion. So that's how we're going to end this episode. And I'm going to end it with a positive word. I used to scoff at people making this statement because of its simplicity, or maybe because it sounded more like an admonishment that I was being everything but kind. But then when I started investigating it for myself, that's when I realized that I was confusing politeness with kindness. Politeness is a fake, superficial manner in which there's no required investment, no self-reflection. But being kind is an adjective. It is an action. If you're kind to yourself first, It's like exercise memory. You will continue and be kind to others. Let that sit with you for a while. I'm going to try to be kind to myself. I'll be kind to others. It's very simple, and you got to repeat it. Lean into the spirit of a new year by counting your blessings, giving to others, and spreading happiness. I know I will. And this episode or this podcast is my means to spread joy and happiness and light and enlightenment. There's so much going on with aggression and just meanness. But if I can leave you with one small positive thought, start your day with that, that can change everything for you. And just basically change your day. Don't forget to check out Dale's Angels Inc. for the notes on this podcast, as well as other works by CQM and other contributors that are in work or in being edited right now. Also, check out my Instagram feed, TNFro is Reading. You can check me out on Facebook, TNFro is Reading Book Club, as well as my YouTube channel, TNFro is Reading and Eating. And what I'm just chatting and streaming at TV Food Wine Girl on Twitter. Navigate to Writer's Block Coffee or shipabagadicks.com. Use my promo code TNFro Coffee or TNFro Got Jokes respectively to get a percentage off of your order. Don't forget to drop me a line at TNFroisreading@gmail.com. All non-trolling messages may be actually read online, and you can do the same if you are in Podbean or Anchor or wherever you listen to the podcast. And again, shedding light and positivity. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as I've enjoyed creating it. Until next time, bye.